an army checkpoint at Aldergrove. You look at the red, white and blue paving stones. You see boulders outside of pub doors just to stop people parking a car there and setting a bomb off. You see the Republican flag outside the Twinbrook estates. Get into the factory for the first day, and there's a driver's restroom next to the canteen. And I was a little surprised when I went for a cup of coffee to see one of the drivers playing with a revolver with ammunition. And that guy did genuinely keep that revolver. I think you might know which one he was. He was the tall, thin one. He kept that revolver in the glove locker because the old hotel had been bombed. You couldn't get a car anywhere near it because there was a big fence all the way around. And to get into the hotel, you had to go through a garden fence. A garden shed. And that's where they searched you. And as I learnt later on, when they put people who weren't staying there out in the evening, they let dogs out into the grounds. We went out for a meal with Barry Wills that night. He was late, we got a bit lost, and we ended up being ambushed by the British Army. I've never been so glad to hear a Cockney accent in my life. But that was an introduction to Northern Ireland. But we were still enthusiastic. Anthony, your start.
Oh, well, I'm basically, just to add a little bit, my background is, what you said, is was with roots as an engineering apprentice, and I went through the mill there, eventually going to Southern Ireland as parts and service manager for Chrysler then. So I had a little bit of experience of Ireland and Northern Ireland. I was also responsible for the rally team, so we quite often came across the border, so I knew a little bit about it. But when my job in Ireland finished, I was appointed to be quality manager in our plant in Iran. And you had to come back every 3 months to get your visa renewed. So I came back for my second visa, and while I was back here, the plant was bombed by Iraq, and that was the beginning of the Iraq-Iran war. And as a result of that, I didn't actually go back to Iran, and I was underemployed, just sculling around doing nothing. And I got a telephone call from our personnel department saying, would I be interested in going to look at an operation in Belfast. And I arrived in Belfast in November, December 1980.
Oh, I was an old man by then.
Yes, you were. And I must confess, if we're talking about it, I mean, I was here when the first car came off the production line, which was in the beginning of December. And we had an address, Mr. DeLorean was over here, and I heard the address about this. We were told we'd never have a prototype car, and we did that. We're told we'd never have a factory, we'd done that. Now we've got a car, we're really in business, so, you know, we can do anything really. So it definitely was a most charismatic character. However, I must confess that my impressions of the plant there were that it was a complete shambles, and I couldn't see how this could possibly work. I went home for Christmas, and I thought about it. There was still no prospect of any other job of any significance, so I took the bull by the horns and I arrived in DeLorean, and I must say that you know, it is those first impressions were really bad. But having agreed to come on board, and then shortly after I came on board. By the way, I was still a consultant. I was actually here as a consultant. I was being paid by Peugeot, but Peugeot were billing my fees to DeLorean. So
that meant you earned a lot more than I did.
Contractors. So I was sort of shielded from something. Peugeot, I assume Peugeot did make a fair bit of money out of mine, but I still was paid a relatively modest salary. But it was very interesting because when I was there in January, we had a visit from the North American team. So I was as a consultant to set up the after-sales part of the business, but there'd been virtually no thought at all about after-sales. There was no parts bit of material, so the assumption was that if anything went wrong with the car, they'd take a part from off the production line and sell it to the dealers. But of course, if something went wrong with the speedo, the only parts that we got in as a manufacturing part was a complete vehicle, complete with all the instruments. So it was patently not practical. So there was a huge amount of work to be done to.
And if it was designed by Lotus, it wouldn't fit anyway.
Well, this is true. I will come on to that. Since you raised it, I mean, basically, I mean, it is true to say that you can't compare the Lotus company as it is now, which is sort of highly technical and involved in lots of manufacturing projects.
This is something to do with libel, by the way.
But it is true that I mean, Lotus in those days had just about developed out of the special. You know, they had manufactured low volume cars with the obviously the original small elite low volume. Lots of problems with that car, and the Elan, and so they built a few cars, but they were selling cars to enthusiasts, and enthusiasts are very forgiving. So if something didn't fit, you could fire it, and it could fit.
And enthusiasts continue to develop the car.
Yes, that's right. So I won't go on anymore. Perhaps you'd like to take on from there, right?
Yeah, I think because you had more to the factory, because after the early days of '79, I didn't actually see the factory again, apart from the odd weekend, until early '81. My time was then in Coventry, where we developed a purchasing office, a contact office. I don't think that had anything to do with the fact that the purchase director, Barry Wills, lived in Coventry. It was pure coincidence. and with Lotus and with our suppliers. And I think the horror that we had was probably Lotus. Because, as Anthony said, they are blacksmiths. There are other engineers involved. There was Bill Collins' team who were over at Hethel. Basically, if you ever get into the Lotus factory, it's a gorgeous brand new, well, was then brand new factory. If you just go down the road,